Hello everyone! Today on Paddle Pedal Shoot, I'd like to talk to you about 28mm lenses, why I have so many, and why you need some too. You see, 28mm is my most used focal length. The reason for that is because it allows me to have the widest field of view possible without everything starting to distort and turn into kind of a funhouse mirror. It's long enough to use for pleasurable backgrounds on portraits and events. I can use it to create atmosphere and mood, and the most important thing, the reason why I picked the 28 instead of the 35 is that the 28 gave me a little bit of room so I could let my subject breathe. I think that's really important. It's something that's overlooked nowadays in photography. Everybody wants to frame so tightly, they want to crop so close, you lose all of the background, all of the detail. The reason why you wanted to take the picture in the first place most of the time has to do with the subject in its background. So here I have, on this side, native 28mm lenses. These are native full frame 28mm lenses. I have the 28 1.4, 16 to 38, 16 to 35mm f4, which hits 28 and is very, very good at 28. The 28mm 1.8 and the 24 to 70 2.8. Now on this side, I have lenses that create a 28mm perspective on their respective bodies. So this is the DX 10 to 20, which at 19mm provides me with a 28mm perspective. The 20 1.8G, which admittedly is closer to 30mm on DX format. The GoPro Hero 8, which I use to film all of my kayak and bicycling adventures. This provides me up to a 28mm perspective at its narrowest field of view. The Nikon Coolpix A's 18.5mm DX lens on in a pocket camera body, that provides me a 28mm field of view. The Coolpix AW100 underwater camera, the widest field of view is a 28mm, and of course my cell phone also provides me with a 28mm field of view. Now on occasion I will also use my 50mm and do a stitched panorama, and if I do a single row stitched panorama, that provides me right around a 28mm field of view. So you may be wondering, how is 28mm this important? And that's a fair question, but I'll answer that by putting up a few images. So I'll let you take a look at those and see what you think. So hopefully by now you've seen what I'm doing with my 28mm. Now, if I'm going to an event, especially an event that I haven't been to before, if I don't know what I'm gonna encounter when I get there, it could be anything, I'm almost certainly packing the 28mm first. It will almost certainly be attached to my body in the bag, ready to go, and it will be paired with either an 85 or a 105 lens most of the time. If I'm doing landscapes, 28mm is where I'm gonna start. If I'm doing events, like I said, 28mm is where I'm gonna start. If I'm doing astrophotography, 28mm gives me the widest field of view I can get while still not distorting the things that I'm trying to photograph with the sky in the background. So 28mm will be my choice there. The only situation where I will knowingly go into with the 28mm not directly attached to the camera but in the bag is if I know I'm doing exclusively portraits. In that situation, I'll almost certainly have the 85 or the 105 on, but the 28 will make an appearance during those events. It will almost certainly produce some of the better images out of that event. It's just not perfect for everything. So when I'm buying into a new system, the first question I ask myself is, how am I gonna get to 28mm? How are you gonna get to 28mm on your system? You should ask yourself that same question. Most of the time there will be a prime lens that you are able to get that'll give you 28mm and also give you a wide aperture. That's really important. At 28mm, most of your shots that you will likely shoot are going to be fairly wide aperture. You're going to want some isolation because at 28mm it's so easy to get everything in focus, and a lot of times that's not what you're looking for. So you're going to want an aperture of at least f2.8. Really, you want f2 or wider. If you're gonna shoot zooms, that's fine. I find that most zooms tend to be very sharp at 2.8. Even the 16 to 35, which I'm really unhappy with most of the time, still shoots really well at 28mm, and that's a lot of the reason why I still have it. If it didn't do 28mm well, it would not be with me. So hopefully, I'm gonna show you a few more images. Hopefully you can get an idea of what I'm doing with my 28mm. and you'll start to understand the reason why I've picked it. So now I've got you on the 20mm 1.8 on the D5600. That's about a 28mm perspective, closer to 30mm, but the effect is the same. So hopefully you can see what I'm talking about. I've got more room to move around here. It's more dynamic. It's a much more interesting shot, and hopefully you feel the same way I do. But 28mm is by a wide margin, my most used focal length, and it's for this reason right here. You were on this 50mm 1.8, which is a fine lens, but it's flat and it's almost boring. I like this dynamic view. I like that things stretch. See, look at that. Look, that's so much more interesting as a viewer, and as the shooter myself, I think it's a much more interesting view. So hopefully I've taught you something, and hopefully you'll go out and try a 28mm lens in whatever flavor fits your camera. So thank you. This has been Ben with Paddle Pedal Shoot, and I'll see you next time.